Hello everyone, good evening. I am Aishwarya Gupta and I will be a trainer for SQL. I have an experience of 7 years into some Fortune 500 organizations working with the skills like SQL, Python, data science, machine learning, and also Tableau and Power BI. I have experience of 5 years into training. So today's topic for SQL is rollup and queue function in SQL. But before starting with rollup and queue functions, we'll understand group by clause in SQL. So what is group by clause? Group by clause is used to arrange identical data into groups, which is used in conjunction with aggregate functions like count, sum, max or minimum. So to perform these operations on each group of data rather than your entire set. So the syntax for the group by function works like we'll first enter the select statement, then the from, table name, where condition, group by clause, and order by if required. We'll move to our next topic, rollup. So what is rollup operator? Rollup operator is an extension of a group by clause which will help you for calculating subtotal and ground total for a set of columns. We'll understand in deep once we'll start working on rollup function. Now the syntax for rollup clause is select statement, then the column name, then the aggregate function with the from table name, then we'll write group by clause and rollup, and in parentheses we can mention the column names for whatever we want to perform the rollup. Now, here is an employee table that I have created and a data set for the employee table, which will have your columns as employee ID, which is a primary key, employee name, employee gender, employee salary, designation, and department. Now, in rollup function, you can see two images which shows one shows the group by function and other shows the rollup clause. So what's the difference between a group by clause and a rollup clause? So group by clause, you'll see that it has 4 rows in which the total grand record is missing. In the rollup function, we'll see 5 records which has the total come salary as one of the records. We'll go in deep once we'll start working on it. So our next topic is cube. So what is cube? So cube is very much similar to our function which is rollup operator. The only difference between that two is in rollup you get the total sum and grand sum of the specific columns, but in cube you get the total sum and grand sum of the specific columns for all permutations whichever set of column is defined. So if you see the syntax of cube is, we'll write the select statement, column names, then aggregate function from table name, we'll write group by clause, and in cube, within parentheses, we can mention the number of columns we want to perform cube operator on. It can be one column, it can be two columns and more. So let's see, like in this example, you see a table which has a columns as continent, country, city, and sales amount, and we have performed roll-up operator on continent, country, and city. And similarly, we have mentioned cube operator on continent, country, and city. So how it's differing? If you can see from the images over the screen, roll-up has 3 rows coming up, while cube has 7 rows coming up. So the cube shows all the permutations of columns which we have used in a cube function. Now let's go to our database which is MySQL, and I'll run with a basic query which is select star from employee, that I've already told that I've already created an employee table and inserted a database. Now if you see the data sets, the same columns, the employee ID, employee name, employee gender, employee salary, employee designation, and employee departments. Now here employee ID is a primary key. So very first we'll start with group by clause. So let me write the basic query for group by clause. Here if you see I've written count star, which is again a aggregate function from your table name, group by department, and then we'll also write order by department. Now if you're going to run this query, you will see 4 records are being fetched, which shows the number of employees for finance, in HR department, in IT department, in marketing department. Now, instead of count, I'll run a sum of salary, which will give you the sum of salaries each department, which is again an aggregate function. So instead of that, what I'll do is I'll mention salary, and then I'll just rename the column as total salary, and I'll run it. So since we have ordered by department, we'll see finance coming first, as F comes first, after that H comes, then I, and then M. So here you will see that we are getting department wise salary. What I'll do, I'll just try to show you the differences. So I'm copy pasting the data over Excel, and once we have it, we'll see it. So this is the way we can run a group by clause with an aggregate function. Now let's come to our next topic, was roll up. So how roll up is not much different. After group by, we'll use here roll up clause. I have put here, since we are doing the roll up on only one column, so we'll put roll up bracket column name, and if we run this, we'll get the data in this way. Again, what's the issue with this data is, I'll show. Let me copy it first. Now if you see, the data for one first column is coming as null, but we see a total salary of 127,000. Now the total salary, we are not able to see like what this figure gives us the data about. So what about we can see is, we can use a collage function. So what does a collage function do? Let me write it down first. So this is the collage function. After collage, we'll put a parenthesis, then the column name, and then whatever you want to mention as a column. So what does collage function do? It replaces the null value with a specific value that you give. So here I have given, which means if department is null, then it will populate in place of null. You will see total come salary, and if department is not null, then finance, HR department values will come. So if you see here, our first record is null in department. Now I'll show and I'll run it. We'll get the data as total come salary, and this will give you a clear picture of, okay, so the first row tells what is the total amount of salary we are spending for an employee. Now what we can do is, this is the example which I gave for only one column. We can go further and see how roll-up function works for two columns, and for that I am taking another column which is gender. I have added in the roll-up clause as well, and I also add in a column so that you get a clear understanding about it. So once I execute, now see we are getting some 13 rows which have department, gender, and total salary. I'll help you with the difference here. If you see, we have some 13 records, and here what is happening is, we have in the one column we have only finance. So the count will come of total salary this way. But in since we have two columns we have used to perform roll up, then finance with all the columns. So we have female, and then the total salary is 2,27,000, and then we have finance male. We have total salaries 141,000. Now this finance is showing you that what is the total salary we have only for finance irrespective of gender, which is 368,000. And if I'll sum these two columns, we'll get how much? 368,000. So now this thing is comes as what? It comes as subtotal. We call it a subtotal. So if you have remember, I told that roll-up operator gives subtotal and grand total. So these are subtotals which are in yellow. These way, and this one, the total come salary, is your grand total. So this we'll say as grand total. Now, if you want to see at once how our distribution of salary is with respect to gender and department, we can see that if you want to see how is the distribution of salary only with respect to department, we can see that, and what is the total salary that we are giving to employees, that also we can see in running one query itself. Now, after checking for two columns, we can run how the roller function works for three columns. And this time I'm using the column as designation. Similarly, I'll add in the columns as well, like I did for gender. And I'll rerun the query. And if you see, we got this data. I'll just paste it here. And if you see, we got more records. Now these records are because it gives you the combination with designation as well. So if in the very first row, if you see, we have finance, we have gender as FF, and your designation as finance analyst, which is having a total salary of 77,000. Now with this combination, the total salary is 77,000. But again, if you see the combination of finance and F female and designation as null, then we have 227,000 as a salary, which is matching with our previous combination. So even if you are having three columns, you can add four columns in your roll up clause, and then you can see like how is your distribution of salary is. But it also gives you the total salary. It gives you the marketing without any sum. So this is one thing that we have shown using three columns. Now we'll come to our next topic, which is cubes. Now, if you remember, I told you there is not much difference between cubes and roll-ups. The only difference between cubes and roll-up is roll-ups gives you the sum and grand total of a specific column, while cubes give you grand total and total of all permutations of the columns specified. So we'll show here, I'll mention here cubes. For the very first example, like I gave you for rollup, I'll take the department example so that it's easy for you to understand. I'll just simply run this query mentioning replacing rollup by cube, and we got this data. Now, since we have performed the cube operator with one column, we will compare how the data is differing. So if you are doing something over one column, either roll or cube, our records and the sum remains the same. So there is not much different. But let's suppose we'll do for two columns, and as similar to the roll up, we'll take the column as gender, and I'll add in the columns as well, and I'll run the same query. So this time what is happening is, I'll just see, we got some 15 rows. This is for cube, I'll paste, and for roll up we got some 13 rows. Now where the difference is, let's start comparing the roll up records and the cube records. So for the very first row, department is finance, gender is F, the total salary is 22700, which is matching completely, which is nice. But if you see in rollup, have we got any row mentioning only the sum of males and females? No. So there the difference lies. If you see our very last and second, third rows, we see that we got a sum of gender for female, the salary that we are providing to employees, and for the male employees, what is the total sum of salaries. So here lies the difference. Apart from that, the complete data remains the same, but there's a benefit that you do not have to run the query twice to get only the sum of salary we are giving to a specific gender, either female or male. So cube helps you giving the records. Now let's see, in similar manner we have done for rollup. Similarly, we'll add for cube also, and I'll use the same designation column to perform cube operation, and then we'll see like how it's differing. So I'll be adding this designation column and I'll run the query. Now see, this time we have got some 83 records, where you can see, here you can see the number of rows. So I'll paste it over Excel and I'll see like what's the difference. So the only difference is, as I told you, you will get the finance, gender is F, designation is financial analyst. Again, the first row is same for 2 columns and the 3 columns. The only difference will appear for cubes is that you will also get only for females what is the salary, only for marketing analyst what will be the salary. So let's see now this one. So this is only for finance. What was the total salaries? 36800. You can compare here also that only for finance the total salary was 36800. Now let's see, we'll check what will be the value if it's only male or if it's only female. Now let's see, we'll figure out one record that we'll be able to see on that. So for that, what we can do, we'll just put a filter and we can just say for male and female, for the value of department is total come salary, and here we'll filter by null because we only want to see what is the summation of F for female, what is the total salary, and for male what is the total salary. So it will come exactly same as our roll-ups. Now the work is that we'll see like, okay, have we got anything for database administrator? What is the salary a person, the employee is having only designation as database administrator? What is drawing is 58,000. We are providing the salary for database administration, combining of all the employees and all the genders and all the departments sum. So I hope it's clear to you. We'll again do a quick revision about it. So we have started with our very basic concept, which is group by. So group by is a clause that helps you in grouping the data with the use of aggregate functions like count, sum, average, max, and min. So in my example, I have used count to get the number of records per department. I have used sum to get the total salary by each department. And I've used the same syntax. I've used select, then the column name from employee. I've not used the where clause because it's not required as of now. Then group by, and then I've used order by on the basis of department. Our next topic that we touched on was rollup. So rollup is operator is an extension of a group by clause that I already showed. So what I did in my example, I have used group by, then I have used rollup, and in the parenthesis, I have used a department, which is a column name that I want to perform rollup on, and also I have used sum and then salary, which is an aggregate function in the select statement. Next, we have shown in the very starting that there was a deployed table and it has these many columns. And basically, I have used gender, designation, and department to show you the examples of roll-ups and cube. Now, in the images we have gone through, like we have also seen like there was a total missing for a group by, but in roll-up we have this total come salary row. You can name it anything. You can name it total salary. You can name it salary total, whatever you feel like, you can do it with the help of a collage function. So what does a collage function do? Collage function replaces a null value with the value you prefer to give it. Here we gave it total come salary. Then we move to cube. So cubes are very much similar to operator, roll-up operator, and the difference is the cubes give the subtotal and grand total of all the permutations. So if you have seen, like we have taken the example of department and gender. So in roll-ups, we were only getting data for the departments and their sum of salaries. But when we went to cube, we were having data for departments and their salaries, as well as we have got the records for gender, which is F and M, and their total salaries. So this was the syntax that we have used. If you select a statement, we have used the aggregate function, which was sum over salary, then from employee, then group by clause, and then cube. And in the brackets, I have used department for one at column, then department and gender for showing you the 2 columns function, and also department, gender, and designation to show you that how it works with 3 columns. Now, to sum up again, like the example shown as continent, country, city, and sales amount are those tables having 4 columns, and we have performed roll up on continent, country, and city, and similarly cube on continent, country, and city. So if you see, like we got 3 records in the roll up, but we have got 7 records in cube. Similarly, I have shown you example for designation and gender, where for roll up we had 13 rows, but in cubes we have 15 rows because we got the total salaries gender wise. So I hope it's clear. Thank you.